This is a third of the series of responses I'm making to the discourse of a Sunni scholar, Mr. Javed Ghamidi. There's no doubt about the fact that Mr. Javed Ghamidi is a very well-read person and a scholar in his own right. The purpose of this video is threefold. One, if there has to be a discussion, compatibility of the medium of communication has to be maintained. If there's a written discussion, it should be done in writing. If there is a discussion in an audio format, it should be discussed in an audio. And if there is a video, then the discussion should be made through video communication. This video of Mr. Javed Ghamidi is on the internet and is getting great public response. And to a certain extent, I'm disappointed because those of us are trying to appreciate and applaud the viewpoint of Mr. Ghamidi without trying to read between the lines. He has briefly traced the history of Shiaism in Iran. The historical facts that he has given for the growth of Shiaism in Iran are historically correct. There's no doubt about it. But the message that he has given needs to be clarified in a scholarly manner, in an educated manner, and in a manner which is within the context of education, literacy, and reality. He has tried to portray that all forms of Shia movements, Azadari, the Shias waiting for the appearance of Imam Zamana Jalallah Ta'ala Farajak, and the ground reality of Wali Faqih, all these movements are politically motivated, and that there are political aspirations to the entire school of Shia thought. This is completely contrary to the fact. In the first two parts, I have tried to give the exact situation of the reality that what Mr. Ghamidi has said is not correct. But these two parts are in Urdu, and I'm purposely recording this humble message in English because I appreciate that the younger generation, those who are up to their early 30s, are not very well versed with Urdu language. And they have a greater understanding and a greater appreciation of what is communicated in English. And I wish to communicate the message in English. I have not been a preacher, I'm not a preacher, and I have no ambition to be a preacher. But there are certain realities of life which need to be clarified. The point of the matter is that there have been two distinct schools of thought. Allah and those on the side of Allah have been counter-materialistic, and they have always tried to prove that power and authority is not Sirat Mustaqim. Power and authority is not the path of Allah. The path of Allah is the path of Allah under His commandments, and when one treads on the path of Allah, power and authority automatically comes whether its power and authority herein or its power and authority hereafter. The other school of thought has been that no, Sirat-e-Mustaqim is not power. Power is Sirat-e-Mustaqim. They have tried to maintain and prove that whoever is in power and in authority, necessarily he is on Sirat-e-Mustaqim. These are two distinct schools of thought. I wish to clarify that Shias believe that Sirat-e-Mustaqim is power and authority. Power and authority is not Sirat-e-Mustaqim. Power and authority is not necessarily Sirat-e-Mustaqim. Sirat-e-Mustaqim is imperatively and necessarily power and authority. I have given my logic in the first two parts, which are in Urdu, and now I wish to present the support of the contention of Shias that Sirat-e-Mustaqim is power and authority. I wish to prove it from the Holy Quran. There is this Surah An-Nisa number 4 and ayat number 59. It says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu atiyu Allah wa atiyu Rasula wa ulil amri minkum. Shias believe that this expression of ulil amri minkum does not apply to worldly appointments. Shias believe that ulil amr cannot be elected and selected by the people. Ulil amr cannot be elected and selected from the world. Ulil amr has to be appointed by Allah. This is the belief of Shias. This is the belief deriving from the concept that the only and complete source of power is Allah. And it is Allah's authority, it's Allah's prerogative to appoint a Rasul, to appoint a Nabi, and to appoint Ulul Amr. The other schools of thought amongst Muslims define Ulul Amr as those who are in worldly power and authority. From this very interpretation of this ayat of Quran, it should be evident that the other schools of thought, they believe that power and authority is Sirat-e-Mustaqim, which is the path of Allah. Whereas Shias believe that Ulul Amr comes from the commandment of Allah, and the Ulul Amr may or may not be in power, may or may not be heading a government, may or may not be the head of a state. To prove, in the contemporary period, there is a Prime Minister of Iraq. Shias are not obliged to follow personal and religious commandments of the Prime Minister of Iraq, even if he is a Shia. Shias take their religious and personal commandments from a mujtahid who is not in power, who has no office in the government, who has no material authority. The president of Iran, Rouhani, is a Shiite. But Irani Shias do not take their personal commandments and behavioral commandments and religious commandments from the president of Iran. They would much rather take their personal and religious commandments and the commandments relating to character and good deeds from a thin, poor mujtahid sitting in the small corner of a dilapidated mosque. A Shia takes commandments from that poor man sitting in a small corner, and he does not take commandments from the president of Iran, although he is in power. But those who are not Shias and are Muslims, they say that a Muslim who is in power and authority has got the right for religious commandment, has got the authority that the people should follow him in their personal conduct and in their personal behavior. Shias do not believe in that, because Shias believe that Sirat-e-Mustaqim is power and authority. Power and authority is not Sirat-e-Mustaqim necessarily. Historically, Huzur sallallahu alayhi wasallam was not in government for the first 12 years of his declared prophethood. Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam was in governmental power for limited number of years. Imam Hassan alayhi salam was in governmental and political power for 6 months. And from Imam Hussain alayhi salam to the 11th Imam, Imam Hassan Askari alayhi salam, they were not in political and governmental power for the fraction of a second. Still, they were followed. Their commandments were followed. Till date, Shias follow the commandments of these infallibles who were not in government, who were not in power, who were not in authority in the material sense. So, Shia movements, Azadari, waiting for Imam Akhirul Zaman Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajak, is a movement of Sirat-e-Mustaqim, is a movement of Nahi Anil Munkar wa Amr bil Maruf. It's not a movement of acquiring political power or worldly authority. It is not. Azadari is not a political movement. No Azadari procession in the history of Azadari till date has ever marched or tried to connive to march towards a governor house or a president house or a prime minister's mansion and try to grab power. It has not happened. On the contrary, what they do, they talk about the great deeds of Zibil Azim. They talk about the noble principles explained and elaborated by Sayyid al-Shuhada Imam Hussain alayhi salam. So, let it be made absolutely clear that if political power comes to Shias, it has nothing to do with Shias in their divine, spiritual, and personal capacities. This is proven in Iran, as I gave the example. Rouhani is not followed by any Iranian Shia in his personal behavior. Iranian follows the laws and the rules and regulations of the government, which may be headed by anyone, Rafsanjani or Rouhani or Ahmadinejad or whoever. They respect him as a head of the government. They do not make it obligatory and mandatory on them to follow the commandments of those people who are in power. On the contrary, they follow the commandments of those people who are not in any material power, but they are inviting people to the noble deeds of Sirat-e-Mustaqim. So Shia movement, Azadari movement, awaiting the appearance of Imam Zamana Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajak, has no political aspirations attached to it. Shia belief, Jafariya belief, is not a political movement. It's not a political belief. Shias believe that Sirat-e-Mustaqim is power. Power and authority is not necessarily Sirat-e-Mustaqim. May God bless you.